Good morning, and welcome to how enterprises can measure the business value of generative AI. Great to have you here today. Now, before we get started, I've got a couple questions for our audience here. So by a show of hands, who has had experience in either prototyping or putting into production one or more generative AI use cases? Let's see hands. All right, we have a fair number of hands. All right, very good. Now, how many have been involved in building a business case to support the justification for that use case? All right, we still see a fair number of hands in the air. All right, very good. Now, one more question. So, for those of you who have gone through that business case process, let's see a show of hands who've put in place processes to measure the business impact, such as impact on process efficiency or customer impacts. All right, fewer hands. All right, very good. Well, welcome. My name is Bruce. I'm a practice lead for our Cloud FinOps and Office of the CFO practices in Google, part of our Delta Innovation and Transformation practice. And I'm honored today to be joined by Alok from Palo Alto Networks. So Alok, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Bruce. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this session. My name is Alok Tongaonkar. I lead the AI team for Prisma Cloud product from Palo Alto Networks. Prisma Cloud is the leading cloud-native application protection platform. What this means is that we protect our customers' applications all the way from code to their deployment in cloud. And my team is responsible for building out AI features which improve the customer experience and the security outcomes for our customers. And besides my role within the product organization, I'm part of a cross-functional AI committee which is responsible for setting the vision and strategy for AI adoption within our company.
Thank you for that, Alok. So when you're not experimenting with new generative AI use cases, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, I love to watch sports. And lately, my kids have also become interested in multiple sports. So I can spend time watching and discussing sports with them. And Bruce, what do you do when you are not helping your customers build out FinOps capabilities?
Well, I'm fond of travel and fine food, and my wife will tell you if you can't find me, I'm usually on a golf course somewhere.
Oh, so did you get a chance to play golf here in Las Vegas?
Well, as a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to play at TPC Las Vegas yesterday, a gorgeous, very challenging course. All right, so let's get into the meat of it here. So Alok, how did you first get into AI, and what was it about this technology that really sparked your interest?
So when I joined graduate school, I was very interested in cybersecurity. So I was taking all courses in security. But one of the courses that I took was on artificial intelligence. And as part of that course, we read a paper on applying artificial intelligence for intrusion detection systems. And that was very interesting and got me hooked. So I started reading papers and researching on how to use AI for security use cases. Eventually, I ended up building AI-powered analytics for security companies.
Now, more recently, generative AI has burst onto the scene. So what do you find different about this technology versus traditional predictive AI?
Yeah, it has been really fascinating for me to see the amount of interest that generative AI has generated, right? And I've been building Gen AI applications for the past 1.5 years, and two things have really stood out for me in these 1.5 years. So first is the pace at which the technology is improving. Like this is in terms of the model capabilities, in terms of the context windows, and even in terms of the Gen AI application architectures that are evolving, starting from, say, the simple retrieval augmented generation, that is the RAG architecture, to the more sophisticated agentic systems. And the second thing that has really stood out for me is how Gen AI has democratized AI. And what I mean by this is previously, AI was mainly used by data scientists. But now you see everyone, technical, non-technical folks, experimenting with Gen AI to solve their use cases. And I truly believe that Gen AI has the capability to change the way we do things in multiple domains.
So what do you see as the benefits of adopting this technology in an enterprise context?
For enterprises, there are multiple benefits of adopting Gen AI technologies. First, we see a lot of gains in productivity when employees start using Gen AI for their use cases. And this is across the board, be it marketing teams using Gen AI for generating marketing content, or customer support teams using Gen AI for helping out with resolving customer issues, or developers using Gen AI for their development use cases. And we have seen in our experiments that even for development use cases, we have seen more than 30% gains across the board, like for different use cases, for coding, for code reviews, for generating unit tests, right? The second benefit is for the customers. And some of this is indirectly because now they can get features much faster. The quality of the features is much better. And also, if there are issues in the product, those can be triaged much easier. But I think the real power and benefit of Gen AI will come when all of these new experimental features from Gen AI start making it into the product, and this Gen AI becomes mainstream in that respect.
So when it comes to corporate projects, what is the requirement regarding a business case to move forward within a given project?
Yeah, so it is one of the great things about Gen AI is that it's very easy to experiment with Gen AI, especially if you use services like GCP's Vertex AI Studio. You can just play around and figure out whether certain use case is good to be used with Gen AI. However, to move from a POC to production, you need to have a good business case because you have to weigh the impact of Gen AI for that use case with the cost that is associated with building out Gen AI applications.
So when you get into the details of that, what are some of the dimensions that you would consider for a Gen AI business case, and how might that vary compared to what you would have done for a traditional application?
Yeah, so from a fundamentals, it's the same. You are trying to weigh the cost of using the technology versus the impact that it has. But some of the things that are different for Gen AI applications that you have to consider is, one, the importance of the data. So Gen AI applications are only as good as the data that are used to train the models. So you have to think about where you're going to get the data. That has to be part of your business case. Similarly, Gen AI applications improve a lot when you take users' feedback and use that to improve the model performance. So you have to think in the business use case how you're going to incorporate user feedback. And in general, as opposed to the traditional applications, you have to think about the initial cost, but also the overall cost when you're operationalizing, say, such as data preparation for model retraining, model inference. And on the impact side, for each of the use cases, you need to clearly define the kind of matrix that you will use to measure the success of Gen AI applications.
So can you give us an example of how this was put into real world use?
Certainly, we can consider the case of support use case, right? Like this is the most common use case that many of the enterprises are trying out. And if you look at the support use case, the impact could be quantified in terms of, say, the mean time to resolve an issue. Now, if you look at the support use case itself, there are different kinds of support cases that you have to handle. Some of them are very simple and can be handled using just documentation. You just ask questions about the documentation. Other use cases are more complex, where you need to use customers' data to triage the issues. So you have to figure out what is the distribution of the problems in your area, and then make that kind of a judgment call in terms of the cost and impact. Which use cases would you prioritize? Do you want to prioritize just the simple ones, the more complex ones, or you prioritize both?
So when you get into a complex example of a business case, particularly one where you're impacting business process efficiency, may have customer impacts, delivering new services, potential new revenue streams. Now, I'm sure that involves alignment and involvement of many teams in the business. So how do you approach that?
That's a very good point, Bruce. Certainly, a lot of the Gen AI use cases that we are seeing require alignment across multiple teams. This could be the team which is actually benefiting as the end user of the application. It could be the team which is producing the data, the team which is building out the models, or the team which is building out the application itself. So you need all of these teams to come together from the onset of the project and agree on the common things, such as what are the pain points that the use case is going to solve, what is the data that is going to be used, what are the metrics that are going to be used to evaluate the success of the project. And one of the main things I think is coming together and figuring out the ownership of the different components, such as the data, model, the application itself. So you need well-defined processes, and you need to have well-defined ownership. And this has to be done across different teams.
So this is quite an effort just for a single project, but then doing this at scale across dozens or even hundreds of projects, that could be quite an effort. So do you have an overarching governance structure to drive that alignment, or is this based on individual team-to-team alignment?
Yeah, so we do have a governance structure to make sure that we have alignment across the teams so that we are reaching our objectives. Also, this helps us to standardize the way we are measuring the efficacies of the model. So we have a standardized way of doing that. We provide guidelines to ensure that proper safety and privacy guidelines are followed, right? And this has really helped us make sure that all the teams are aligned and working well together.
And where does executive sponsorship lie? So is that within technology? Is it within the line of business? Or is it some form of partnership across the organization?
So for us, it has been partnership. The ownership for individual initiatives does lie within a certain team, and it depends upon the use case. For external customer-facing applications, it's the product teams which are responsible. But for the internal applications, internal use cases, it's the individual team which is benefiting from the use case, which is driving it, but with the support of IT and the product organizations which are helping build out the capabilities.
So when it comes to leadership reviews, is the business case focus purely on the justification for new initiatives, or are you also regularly reviewing projects that have been put into production to review their impacts?
Very good question. For us, it has been continuous review with the leadership. Our leadership has been very involved, and we have regular check-ins with our leadership where we get to get invaluable feedback from them about what is important for the business, and also gives us an opportunity to share our results, the progress that we are making, and make sure that the leadership and the practitioners are aligned on the end objective and how we are reaching our goals.
So a major ingredient to being an adaptive, change-oriented culture, it's creating shared learning. So how do you approach that?
So we have a great culture of sharing our learnings within Palo Alto Networks. As I mentioned, we have the AI Model Committee, which meets every week and discusses problems and initiatives that are going on within the different parts of the business. We also have employees who work together, discuss. We have a lot of reading groups, and we have channels where employees discuss their different AI initiatives and do brainstorming. So certainly it has been a great experience sharing all this information, and we have all learned and grown from it. So Bruce, I've been on the hot seat for a while now, so let's turn the tables. How does Google think about building out business capabilities to help businesses evaluate the impact of new technology?
Well, much like we've been discussing, we do have a framework that we advise customers to consider in managing at enterprise scale their investment in generative AI technology. So we'll commonly see customers progressing from a pilot phase to an MVP phase to production. And what we find is a so-called cloud front door process, particularly going from a MVP stage to assess and bring a fine point of assessment of all the business impacts for a suggested project that might be put into production. So what might that cloud front door process look like? It's really a marrying of both technical evaluation with financial viability assessment. In a lot of companies we've worked with, we find that these are separated processes, and we find there's a lot of value in bringing these together. So not only the technical viability assessment, the technical readiness, security, data sources, compliance, operational readiness, but also marrying that with financial viability. And in the case of these use cases, that's not only assessing what the infrastructure cost will look like when that use case is brought to production and brought at scale, but more importantly, having a strong evaluation of the potential business process efficiency impacts, the impacts on customer outcomes if it's a customer-facing type of application, and to assess that going into the project, and then having a full circle set of processes post-production to regularly review the impact. Now, tracking that can be very difficult. It's part of building strong FinOps foundations and roots, is bringing that process structure and governance to be able to track those outcomes and then share those as a business, right? Share those learnings. This is a process of continuous learning. So applying those learnings and building upon the sophistication and ability to measure those impacts. And we find that this so-called front door process then brings together and ties the conversation and is built for scale at an enterprise level.
Thank you, Bruce. This is very informative and very much in line with how we are approaching this at Palo Alto Networks.